We Need Each Other is a podcast about the importance of human interaction. It provides a reminder that we are not intended to live in isolation. Human beings need each other. The things about another that piss you off and the things that take you over the moon are all opportunities to see through another's eyes, recognize their intrinsic value, and then look more deeply within ourselves to find the love that's always there. Well, welcome to this episode of We Need Each Other. Maybe you know that I'm always trying also to enlighten myself, to learn more things about what's happening in the world that is beneficial, particularly for my people, that I don't understand and that I should probably understand better, let alone bring it to the listening audience. So that's what we have here with us today. We have Shani Byard, EDD. She is a South Los Angeles native, social justice advocate, and professor who specializes in cultivating empathic, equitable organizational cultures for youth leadership development and patient-centered healthcare. Drawing on the skill set of her first career in TV and music video production, seems like such a difference. In 2008, Dr. Byard pioneered at Afro Media Lit, a training framework designed to guide participants through a process of transcending the influence mass media has on negative perceptions of Black people. This is what excited me about talking to you. She has trained families, professionals, educators, clinicians, and youth across the country how to examine mass media's influence on their minds, develop culturally conscious practices, and produce transmedia for social change. Dr. Byard's new book at Afro Media Lit, 3 Steps for Anti-Racism in the Digital Age, will be released in the fall of 2021. Dr. Byard is also the Workforce Integration and Operations Director at Providence Health, adjunct professor for the School of Cultural and Family Psychology at Pacific Oaks College, Leadership Council member for the Empowerment Congress, and proud mommy of her 6-year-old daughter, Asha Ma'at Byard. Dr. Byard received a BA in TV production and EDD in Bachelor Leadership for Social Justice from Loyola Marymount University, and an MS in Human Services, specializing in organizational management and leadership from Springfield College. Welcome, Dr. Shani Byard. Yay! We should be clapping right now. I wish I had that sound effect where you can clap because, wow, you've done a lot, huh? It seems like you've really actually done a lot. And, I've been discovering people actually somebody referred us to each other.
Yes.
I think it was. Referred us to each other.
That's right.
And I'm so excited to understand more for myself about what it is that you do. And I'm going to ask this question because I believe I know the answer to it, but people need to understand the importance of it. Patient-centered healthcare. Patient-centered healthcare. What is patient-centered healthcare?
I think it's the simplest way to grasp is, when you center something, right, that something becomes the priority. And so when thinking about health equity and really serving, patients in a way that is just, you really want to create a space or your treatment model, right, to reflect the patient voice, the patient's needs, and for those to inform the treatment, right? How the providers respond to that particular patient. Many times it can be, dealing with, systemic inequality. It can be a space, healthcare can be a space where providers impose their beliefs onto what's best for the patient and, will result in missing or not hearing really what the issue is, and also, seeing that patient as a human being with a voice, with needs, with family, and with assets, right? And so that can all be added to improving that patient's, healthcare. So, my work in patient-centered healthcare has always taken the lane of education. So that has been, what my role is I've worked in mental health and in primary care, ambulatory care, integrated care. And so really making sure that those individuals, clinical and non-clinical, prioritize the patient, put the patient first, and listen to their needs and to tap into their cultural traditions and practices to better understand what's best for the patient.
It seems almost ridiculous, really, that this is even a conversation.
Right.
Or that it is such a need, but it is such a deep need. And I think two people that brought it to light for some people were Beyonce and Serena when they talked about their experience in childbirth. And I think even still people, as much as I've even tried to drive home the point, and many people don't understand that it is tremendous. It is a tremendous issue. And my assumption, Shani, is that because everything, I've had even this greater realization since the work I've been doing after the George Floyd murder, really not even stopping to think in the past about how everything in this country is handled through a white gaze.
Yeah.
That, even the discussion that has come up recently about our need for vitamin D, was never told to us because they need vitamin D too, but not like we do. And so if our healthcare system is looking through a white gaze, is not taking into consideration all different cultures and all different ethnicities. And so is that what you would say is the reason for the work that you do? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think whiteness and institutional racism fuel everything, that I do. And I think the reason why we have to say patient-centered healthcare is part of that problem too. It's all stems from just just historically, really, very much a white-driven, patriarchal, right, society and systems established, and those on one end of the spectrum thrive based on the systems that we have in place, and those on the other are oppressed and severely underserved and definitely not listened to, as Serena would say it, as I would say in my pregnancy experience, my birthing experience as well. So it's a challenge, but that's what I love to do, is just to find ways to reach people and engage them and kind of create safe spaces to become vulnerable enough to say, okay, let me try this. I'm now aware. Yes. So let me see how I can fix it. Yeah.
So how do you educate? You educate on both sides with the people of color who are going under healthcare into healthcare situations, and you also educate on the healthcare side as well.
So my primary focus is for staff, right? Staff, those providing the care. I, not only provide, educational opportunities for them, but also organizational development opportunities as ways to just improve the workforce overall as much as possible. So, it includes identifying individuals who need a little bit of skill building, all the way to, establishing initiatives and new practices and analyzing, various programs that a hospital may, implement, and streamlining them, or identifying, ways that staff can move up the ladder so that they are supported
Mhm.
as well. Onboarding, what that experience is for them. So it's a variety of different things under that umbrella of the work that I do.
And are they very open to receive what it is that you give?
Yeah, so my, workforce development in general and healthcare, definitely has to be a priority for leadership, right?
Hmm.
So,
Yes, right,
yeah, in
right.
order for that, and it's a challenge sometimes in various settings if leadership is not on board, if it's not a part of the vision, if it's not a part of the culture of the organization to, take time out of serving patients to actually sit in a training and get some professional development. Sometimes it's not a priority for leadership, so it can be challenging that way. And when it is, it's wonderful because then, happy people, happy staff means happy patients,
Right. Yeah.
which means patient outcomes are met and, good money is coming in. It all affects that. So if you have a, leadership in place that really gets the value of finding ways to improve their workforce and meet the needs of the people that they have providing care,
Mhm.
then it's a win-win, all around. So,
So, I hear you in that it's sometimes hard to get leadership to on board to really realize this is may not have been on your list of what you wanted to do this year,
yeah,
but that this is another system that maintains racism, whether you're conscious of it or unconscious of it, that it is a form of racism when people of different cultures are trying to tell you, no, actually, I'm in pain. Oh, you couldn't be in that much pain, or what,
right.
or you don't need, or whatever. You're telling them something, and they're not listening to you based on what their experience is with other people,
Yeah.
and it's sometimes hard. I know in all systems, but I know healthcare to turn their head enough to the right or to the left to realize people may be dying unnecessarily in my hospital or in
Yeah.
my medical center or whatever because it is what's happening. People are dying because they're not being listened to. Am I correct?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, with the recent, I would say, awakening from George Floyd, I've definitely seen healthcare systems roll up their sleeves, jump in, invest the money,
Mm.
make important decisions, hire, and dedicate staff, not just treat it as some additional thing that, we'll have somebody volunteer and do,
Yes,
but
exactly.
really creating actual departments for health equity and directors and executives,
That's wonderful. That's good to hear.
and yeah, and to improve the training
Hmm.
that's necessary
Wonderful.
as well. Yeah.
So, Afro media literacy. What
Yes.
does that mean and why is it important?
Okay. So I think, one thing to kind of get a good grasp of what Afro media literacy is to think first about literacy. When you're
Mm.
literate about something, as it relates to just reading words, comprehending those words, you can think critically about those words. You can write as well, so you can produce new uh, essays, blogs, whatever it is. When you're literate in something, then you are able to take control of it a little bit, right? And formulate your own words and your own expressions and opinions and things like that.
Hmm.
So when it comes to media literacy, it's the same type of thing. You want to be literate in the way that we read media. So media meaning watching TV or commercials, or we see a billboard on the side of the street, and social media, film. TV, radio, right? We want to be able to be literate, not just a consumer, right?
Yeah.
Consumers listen,
Uh-huh.
and we take in all these sorts of messages that we get from music videos and songs and television commercials. We take it in, it influences our brain, and before we know it, we have everything in our makeup bag and
Yeah.
closet for our wardrobe that we just saw last week,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
on TV and via commercial. If you're literate, right, in media, you are able to separate yourself from the influence. You can start think critically. Wow, how clever that commercial
Mm.
was. It
Mm-hmm.
actually, I can
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'm hungry now. That's interesting. I want,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to tap into the power of that. Look at the lighting of that, commercial and the big bright colors. It's really making me
Mm-hmm.
focus, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we want to be able to take that learning and apply it to our daily lives. And maybe we're not as influenced by what that commercial was trying to sell. More, we're thinking about how we can create our own commercial to sell my own business product or
Yeah.
something like
Mm-hmm.
that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of media literacy, when you have the ability to think critically about the media messages that you're getting, and then look at ways that you can become more of a producer than a consumer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Afro media literacy is something that I designed after working in education. So my first career was in education. I used to run after school programs and work a lot in middle and high schools
Mm.
throughout Los Angeles. And I began to notice the disproportionate number of Black children who were sent out of the classroom for whatever reason. And when I was, coordinating these arts education programs, I had to be in the school and navigate the school and sit into the classroom sometimes and talk to principals and talk to some of the teachers and observe the teachers teaching. And I with a earlier career before I got into
Mm.
education, my first career was in TV production. Coming from that, I understood how much images from media can, influence the way that you consume something, right? It can influence the way that you buy something. It can influence a lifestyle that you decide to take on, right? So I used to work in music video production with Dr. Dre and Snoop, and
Mm.
I became mindful and very sensitive to, wait a minute, I know young Black kids are watching them smoke and drink and treat women the way that they do and use the N word and the B word and all that kind of stuff. So let me actually move to education so that I can really start teaching them how to read and think critically about the music videos that they're watching.
Mm.
And so when I was in the classroom and seeing this, this cultural misperception, I would call it, from the teachers to the students, I couldn't help but remember, right, how much we are all influenced by
Yes.
media, not just young people, but teachers too. Adults, police officers, other faculty, right? Everyone is influenced by this, machine that tells us who people are, tells us what to watch, tells us who to hate, tells us who to love, tells us what's beautiful, and what is not, right? And most of the time, Black folks are on the negative side of all of those
Yeah.
things.
Right.
So Afro media literacy focuses on the Black experience within the process of thinking critically about media and looking at how mass media produces these myths and stereotypes about us,
Yes. Yeah.
and how we're impacted by that, and how all other people are impacted by that. And it's not just
Yeah.
us, it's white
Yes. Yes.
standards of
Yes.
white beauty, things like that. And then it is, Afro media literacy is a process. So we move from analyzing the myths, right? And looking at the history of media and how that came to be, and how it really reinforces the belief systems
Mhm.
that are embedded in institutional
Yes.
racism.
Yes. Yes.
Then looking at, stage one, and stage two is looking at the rebuilding kind of the truth, right?
Yes.
What is it to navigate institutional racism for us? Who
Mm.
are we? Are we criminals, or are we brilliant? Are we consumers, or are we innovators?
Mhm.
And really kind of unlearning, right, what we all have learned about Black folks. And correcting that, and also really acknowledging and honoring what it is to navigate institutional racism.
Mm.
So that's kind of the second stage of, rebuilding the truth. And the third stage is to formulate action, right? So we take what we learned about media, um, some tools of analyzing that media, the new knowledge of who we are as a people, and how the resilience of navigating white institutional racism, and then looking at how we can use those same tools that were, very effective in oppressing a people, to now make change, to become anti-racist, to
Mhm.
practice anti-racism in a media-saturated society. So we
Mm.
begin to look at our media diet. What are we consuming on a daily basis, right? What does that actually look like? And are we nourishing our minds to counter what what are we countering the dominant narratives, essentially, that are shaping our lives and shaping
Mm.
perception about us? What are we doing with our skill set, in our social
Mhm.
media activity? Are we only following the Kardashians, or are we following Stacey Abrams, and
Yes.
other folks, right? And I'm blanking
And
right
doing
now, of
our
course, but
own and
and
doing our own further research, you know?
yes,
We just
yes,
take what's out there in front of us, we believe it, and we don't do any
and we believe
research
it.
to
Mm-hmm.
determine what's true and what's not true. This topic was interesting to me primarily because I have been, since the murder of George Floyd, teaching a class specifically for white people called Deconstructing Racism, moving through discomfort to action.
Yes.
All of that is part of the title. It often gets shortened just to Deconstructing Racism. But one of the things that we look at is stereotypes that you've seen in the media, the things that have been placed inside of you that you never thought about and didn't realize that you were being influenced to believe a certain way about Black
Mm-hmm.
people because the majority of Black males in media are criminals, and the women are sexualized, and so there's a belief that that's who we are without, and then so therefore if someone is in your workplace, they're different. They're
Yes.
different. They're not like most of
Yeah.
those Black people. And to
Right.
realize that their thinking has been maneuvered into these areas to believe these things about us for a purpose that was certainly not for our
Mm-hmm.
well-being, for our good.
Yes.
So, yes, I'm so excited about what you're doing here for the minds of our own people to realize how we're even manipulating or being manipulated through the media. Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
My background is in television advertising sales. And
Oh,
so I
wonderful.
would realize that then that those Colt 45 commercials that ended up in that Black programming, just that I started to look at that kind of thing and how important a demographic is. A
Yeah.
demographic is everything. So who is it that you're trying to influence through this show that you're airing and through the commercials that you're placing in it?
Right.
So, yeah. Thank
Yep.
you for what you're doing.
Very true.
How long have you
Well,
been doing that part of? of your many things
So
that you do?
yes. So I started practicing, practicing meaning providing professional development trainings in Afro media literacy in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And I've since, been able to train, police officers, lots of teachers, community activists, young people. And
How has it influenced the police officers?
So my one of the key takeaways that came from the training with the it was sheriff peace officers, right? LA County Sheriff from the LA County Sheriff's Department. And one of the key things I was just talking to a friend of mine about one of this main outcome. There's various opportunities for these peace officers to go to. It was called Young Men and Peace Officers Dialogue, right? So it was a training for Black males, young youth, and peace officers, and there was an opportunity for them to sit in dialogue together, learn together, have groups separate and together, brainstorming. And so, as Afro media literacy was incorporated throughout the process according to the 3 stages, there was lots of interaction and communication between the two. In one of the breakout sessions with peace officers, only 4 peace officers, they came to the conclusion that they need to practice discretion. And that was missing, in their everyday. The impact of, violence in the community was shared with them. The history of policing of our community was shared with them. How media influences their perception of Black people were shared with them. The pioneers of those who are eradicating the very poorly structured system of justice. And a friend of mine is actually a judge. I recorded him. He had some words, right, for them to just kind of think about, right, the power that they hold, and not to minimize how difficult their job was, but they came to the conclusion themselves that they need to practice discretion, that through discretion they can, be more compassionate, with the individuals that they're working with. So I think, for that moment of time, that was, probably 5 years ago now. I have a poster on the wall, but 2015. So, for that small time and the small group of people that I had, I felt good leaving with some sort of, changed mindset. We spent all Saturday together. So
is that a direction that you would be looking more into these days with the heightened awareness of police brutality?
Yes, I mean, I'd love to be able to. For a while, I took a hiatus on trainings because I had my daughter, and I realized I had to prioritize some things. Most mommies have to do. We have to, figure it out, like what's important.
We have to figure it out.
Yeah,
yes, we do. That's a job in and of itself.
Yes. So I'm just sort of getting back into, Afro media literacy. And I was like, gosh, with George Floyd and everything, I'm like, this is perfect timing.
Perfect timing.
To jump back into the work. So, so absolutely. Yes. More police officers, more teachers, more clinicians, both
teachers,
in mental health.
Teachers.
Yes.
Teachers. That's another key area.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
this work was
yeah,
inspired from by the teachers that I
yes,
was like,
yes,
wait, no, I'm sure if I told you what what your practice, how you're seeing these black boys in your room, and
yes.
how what's influencing you to see them in that way, then I think that I can change the way that you engage with them, so.
Yes. It is amazing, Shani, that, well, again, I've had such an, I grew up in predominantly white environments all my life, except for the 4 years that I went to an historically black university and in corporate America, then back out and in corporate America. So I've been in white environments all my life and have learned, again, since George Floyd, I am constantly saying, George Floyd, I'm so grateful that you gave your life for these moments that we have now, these opportunities that we have now. But I've learned so much about white privilege and what it really looks like. And, some people don't, well, a lot of white people don't like using the word privilege. And so I'm like, put another word in there. I don't care what the word is. The fact is that because we live through a white gaze, that you have an opportunity, even though, people opened their eyes after George Floyd, they still get to turn back to their world and
Yeah.
not recognize and not realize. They get to learn some things and then go back into what's familiar when no person of color has that privilege of doing that. And so I strongly desire your work. It's like, train more people, get more people doing this work. What you're doing, we need each other is the name of this podcast. We need what you're doing because it is a way of opening eyes in all of these systems to understand.
Absolutely.
Because their hearts, I think, are often in the right place.
Yeah.
They don't even in my marketing, I say, I'm coming to help you see what you don't see, but we see all day, every day. What you don't realize, but we hear it all day, every day, but you don't even realize that you're saying it. You don't even realize that you're coming from a biased or racist perspective because it's just the way the world is in your white world. But we're in your world too. America is not a white America. America is America. It's a melting pot of all kinds of people.
Yeah.
But our cultures have not been, none of them have really been embraced and incorporated into this country. And now is the time. And I'm just so grateful that that's the work that you're doing to help them to look to the left, look to the right, and see what's there. Yeah. And recognize it so that you can be different. So you can, I say, be better. People talk about doing better. I'm always talking about being better because we can do good acts. But if we're not better people, and we're better people when our heart and our mind gets opened, and that's what you're doing. So, Dr. Shani, I am curious, how did you, from the little girl that grew up in Los Angeles, yes, how did you come to this person? What was that thing that turned you around, or what was it from your past, or can you explain a little bit about your story?
Sure. So yes, I'm a native of Los Angeles. And I think, my, upbringing was very much, a household of you are black, your people did this and that, and, you're proud of yourself. I think also to my spiritual upbringing, is something that has been, a strength as well. I grew up in under the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. And I, from the age of 4, I was at Sunday school at Self-Realization Fellowship Temple.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Pacific Palisades. And, that was my foundation until I was a teenager and became too much for my mom to handle. So she's like, we need a black family church for you. So, but we, but even still, it was Science of Mind, foundation, Unity Church. And so it was a smaller, but, family oriented, church. And so, but, Yogananda's teachings being, so interdenominational,
Yes.
really, I think that and my cultural foundation helped me to really understand the importance of, we need each other, the whole
Yes.
importance of embracing all people, right? And honoring, who they are individually. They're not supposed to look like me. They should not
Yes.
look like, right? We are not
Right.
supposed to think the
What a
same.
boring world that
We're
would
supposed to,
be.
right.
That's right.
And so, really grasping that at a very young age, I think was really pivotal. So it was definitely, the upbringing. My mother, when I was 16 years old, she took me to see Nelson Mandela speak at the Coliseum. And that was a life changer for me. I was already very much attracted to, student. There was a group called Student Coalition at the time. They did protests, and I learned a lot about current events as it relates to young people, Black people, Jewish people during that time. And I was very much attracted to that work. And so she took me to see Nelson Mandela speak. He was on his tour. He was still imprisoned during that time, but he was, touring, and he had shared about the apartheid. And I was just a sponge. I mean, the brilliance of his voice, and just an orator, just very, just, I felt like he was speaking directly to me. And I did, I took on that movement to eradicate the apartheid. Whatever I could do at LA, so far away from South Africa, I wanted to do, and so he had shared that he was fasting until there was equal voting rights in South Africa. So I told my mom, that I wanted to fast, and she was like, "No, you're not fasting. You have to eat." Yeah. But she's like, I said, okay, well, let me give up. I'm giving up pork, and I'm giving up beef, and chicken, right? Until there's equal voting rights. She said, okay, you can eat fish, still. And I'm like, that was our compromise. But I did that. And the next year, they had, passed a law, and, Mandela became president, and they, actually later after that, because they had to vote him in, but everybody could vote.
Yeah.
And just the feeling of, being involved in that process, and watching, their progress after, I was able to, see and learn from Mandela at that particular time, really shaped, I think, my work. I can do this. I can fight for the little guy. I don't have to be there in the room. I don't have to, I can't even say, today I'm more, I'm not, I used to protest a lot, when I was younger in the street, but there's not one way, right?
Absolutely.
Moving towards, this goal of justice. So I learned that, I can do something from afar. I can fast. I can, I also was, a dancer. So I choreographed a piece on the apartheid and used Miriam Makiba's music, and, wanted to make sure my white peers understood what, the apartheid meant. So I went to all white, very wealthy, private junior high and high school, and I just took it all on, and then helped co-found the Black Student Union at my school, before I graduated and went on, to college and
At Loyola Marymount or in your high
at
school?
Westlake
Okay.
School for Girls.
Okay.
Yeah, it's now
Hmm.
Harvard Westlake, but I was part of the first graduating class of Harvard Westlake, but I went to Westlake from grade 7 through 11th grade. We merged with
Hmm.
Harvard my senior year. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I think those experiences when I was a young person here in LA really shaped that work. It gave me, the foundation to know that I could speak up. I can make change if I found something that's not right. So
And I would venture to say that, you had a very spiritual beginning, a
yes,
very spiritually aware upbringing, which teaches also that there's a guidance system that's in you to hear and to follow.
yes,
And because a lot of people your age without that background could have witnessed what you witnessed, could have gone to hear Nelson Mandela. They could have heard and understood some things, but without that nudge from inside that says
yes.
there's something for you to do, that they would not
Hmm.
necessarily have followed on the type of path. So I'm sure that
Yeah,
whole your
I heard.
spirituality, yeah, yes,
Yeah.
yes, is a very important part of that. I wish that our children were taught more about their inner world.
Yes.
They're not taught much about their outer world either. I don't know what that is they're being taught. But I do wish there was more teaching about the inner world and the inner listening and the inner guidance that you obviously
Hmm.
had as a young child.
Yeah.
So that's I can't gloss over that and dismiss it. I think it's I don't know you except for what we're learning about each other now, but I'm sure that was a very important part of what has caused you to be this factor in the world that you
Yeah.
are. That is so very
Still
needed.
is.
Yes, absolutely,
Still
absolutely.
is. Yeah.
So, as African Americans,
Hmm.
what is it that we can do to benefit ourselves more under the guise of the kinds of things that you teach?
Yeah.
What would you suggest that we become more mindful of, or stepping
Yeah.
forward in whatever? Hmm.
Yeah. So, I think, I do the very similar as you in terms of offering Afro media literacy trainings, right? I separate based on racial experience. So, when I have Black folks in the room, the outcome becomes more of a healing process
Yes, exactly.
to really understand how powerful mass media is, right, on your brain and how it really trains you to see yourself, right? And no matter, and in addition to, how you're treated in society, how people respond to you in society, it becomes an awakening like, wow, Matt, TV and you think it's just entertainment, but it actually is shaping some powerful beliefs, and it's definitely impacting our
Absolutely.
experience, right?
Yeah.
So, I need to train more.
Yeah.
But, follow, I'd say, start with following my Instagram, because there's some key lessons on there that I'm just getting back into the groove. But I think this work is, it is inspired by Black folks. It's for Black folks, you know what I mean? And when I train white folks, they know that too. They,
Absolutely.
we are
Yes.
centering our experience in here, not theirs, our
Yes.
experience, right?
Yes.
And so, I love my people, and hopefully I can train soon. But in the meantime, think about what you're listening to. If you're riding in the car with your babies in the background, in the back seat, think about how powerful that medium of music is,
Mhm.
and choose something nourishing for them.
Mm. I love
Choose
that.
something that is going to, be empowering, like brown skinned girls, right? I love playing that
Yes.
song when my
Yes.
daughter's in the car. And then we
Yes.
get to be like, yes, we love
Yeah.
our skin, we love our
Yes.
lips, we love our
Yes.
noses,
We love our hair. Yes.
Right,
Hmm.
right.
Yeah. Hmm.
Another thing that I do, is with her is racial socialization. It's an academic term, right? Racial socialization, right?
Hmm.
Our world is, very much dominated by whiteness. Okay, so
Hmm.
if you were to Google right now, beautiful women or beautiful woman or beauty, you would see lots and lots of white images,
Yes.
long straight hair, right?
Yes.
And so it's important to practice affirming your children, yourself within the household.
Yes.
And
Yes.
not just verbally. It's important that imagery is images, right? Or the most
Mhm.
powerful way that our brain really records and then, assigns a meaning to,
Yeah.
right? So it's important to, that we have images of us on your walls, right? That we make sure that our books, especially for children, that they
Yeah.
are represent that the characters represent us, right? Or other cultures, but be
Yeah.
mindful of Disney, be mindful of white princesses,
Yes.
and how much that influences our Black young girls.
Yes.
Everybody who knows me knows that, when it comes to my daughter's birthday, I write on there every year, please no Disney products, right? Our
Hmm.
house is full of images of Black people, African art, books that look like her, sound like her. Her media consumption is very much diverse. I control that.
Yes.
So we have to be mindful of how we're socializing our kids when we let Disney into our life. And I hate to like generalize Disney because there
No.
are
Yes. Mhm.
some really great stuff. Moana's great. Coco was great. But we have to be mindful. We think, when I grew up, I had Barbie dolls. I had the white Barbie dolls. Da, 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 da. All of that is, feeding moral value, identity, right, to our children. So we want black dolls.
Yes.
We
And black
want,
images.
and black images,
Yes.
and black
Yes.
books.
Yes.
And we want
And
to
black
make
stories.
and black stories. We want
Yes.
to make time to balance out what we're watching on
Hmm.
television and try to find the diverse stuff. Or now, like, since George Floyd, we have on Netflix, there's a black Netflix. On Hulu, there's a black Hulu.
Yes. Right.
Let's
Hmm.
pick from some of those stories and make sure that we're watching those and balancing our media diets as
Hmm.
much as possible and racially socializing our children. Affirm them every chance you get. They know they are not too light or they are not too dark and their hair is not too whatever we say are
Hmm.
all the time, too tight, too nappy, whatever it is. Affirm that thick hair. Affirm all complexions within our family members.
Hmm.
Just really, really love on each other as much as possible and understand that there's a constant attack on your mind to hate yourself and to make sure
And
other
to
people
hate each
hate you
other. Right. Hate
and to
each
hate each
other.
other and
Yes.
to break up
Hmm.
our village,
Yes. Yes.
um,
Beautiful.
yeah, affirm yourself, seek healthy, nourishing media.
Yes.
Take time to, drop one and add another. So drop
Yes.
somebody unhealthy that you're following that you know is unhealthy. We all know that it is, and find something else positive and healthy that you can add on and replace that follow
Hmm. Hmm.
on Facebook, on Instagram. get on Clubhouse and join some of those African rooms and those Black
Yeah.
affirming rooms, and
Yeah.
have good
You have a room
conversation.
on Clubhouse? You have a room on Clubhouse.
I do. I have a club on Clubhouse called Rise Above the Noise.
Rise above the noise.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can search. My social media is Afro Media Lit.
Afro Media
Um,
Lit. That's on
Afro
Instagram and
Media
Facebook.
and Twitter
Okay. Twitter.
and Clubhouse. You can search me using those, and we can engage in some more
Yeah.
conversation as I
Yes.
come out of this hiatus and try to get back into trainings and at least having conversations.
Yes. Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah,
What you do, what you're doing, what you've been doing is so important. It's so important. It's just
thank
so
you.
important. It could even sound like it's not quite as important. It's hugely important for
Yeah.
we Black people and for white people and for the whole array of people. What you're doing is really important because it's an honoring of every culture and every individual. And that's just not the way this country has been running, but it's changing because of people like you. So we search for Dr. Shani on uh, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Afro Media Lit. And Clubhouse, tell me the name of your club again.
So you can do the same search, Afro
Oh,
Media
it's
Lit on
on.
Clubhouse,
Oh,
and
okay,
my
good.
name will
Okay,
come up.
okay.
But my group on Clubhouse is Rise Above the Noise.
Rise above the noise. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Shani, I am so we have to meet in person and talk more one day because you
Yes,
live right here.
definitely.
We both live in Los Angeles. Yes, maybe we'll meet with
Yes.
Liza and we'll have lunch or something. Who knows? And I can meet that a
Yeah.
beautiful daughter of yours. But I'm so
Yes.
grateful to have you here and to share of your wisdom and your motivation for us as Black people because we need it.
Thank
We do,
you.
and we
Thank you.
need
I
you.
appreciate your work and you taking the time out to spend
Yes.
with me. I just love what you're doing, and definitely goes both ways. I really, really respect and honor your work in this space. And we do
Mhm.
need each other. So
We
I'm
need each
so
other.
happy to have met you, and definitely we can continue to figure out ways to work together and stay connected.
Yes,
So,
yes, yes.
yeah.
Thank you so very much. Have a wonderful rest of your week.
Okay,
Take
you
care.
too. Thank you.